some days, some days doing this, like picking the content about what to do for a video is easy. It is absolutely easy. Sometimes during the summer, during the silly season, you have a bit of a drought. It's difficult to, you've really got to go out and really find some, good stories to make some videos about. But sometimes you get really lucky. And I mean really lucky with this story today because, oh my word, oh my word. If you don't know, at the moment in the UK, there is a new renters reform bill going through, which is going to give a lot of powers to renters. Never had really before. It's going to make them at least a bit more easier. Now, I've said before, I've done a video about this, doesn't go as far as enough as it needs to, but if you heard Angela Rayner, what she said recently at the Labour conference, that she wants to go further with this, she wants to really sort of focus on renters and what they can do. Well, this has got a lot of landlords suddenly very nervous because over the past real couple of years, there has been very, very, very much so a realization that actually there is a housing crisis, not only just a housing crisis, but a rent crisis as well. And put it this way, you can't have two of these crises going on simultaneously because then that comes with huge problems within itself. And if you are landlords or anything like that, then you need to sort of, take the heat off yourselves because ultimately, as we've always said, landlords are the biggest problem when it comes to renting. They are the worst of the worst. And yet landlords will say, oh, it's not me, I'm a good landlord, when in reality, all they are doing is propagating many of the continuing bad practices that their entire industry does and constantly does. And I should know, I used to work, one of my very, very first proper jobs I ever got was working for a company that taught people how to be landlords. And I'll tell you now, oh my, oh my. Yeah, I've seen some weird, wacky, and wonderful things said in that time. Maybe I should do a video. I don't know. Again, a lot of the stuff might get me into trouble now, saying some of the stuff. But yeah, bizarre philosophy. The guy that I used to work for used to have, very, very bizarre indeed. But yeah, and so if you are a landlord, you need to take the pressure off. So what do you find? Well, you need to find a stooge. You need to find someone to say, oh, well, you don't understand. The landlords are the heroes in this scenario. And of course, as I said, content sometimes, comes to you. It just leaps up at you instantly. And look, there it is. Renters are the real villains of the rental crisis. They're worse than landlords. Let us find out today this nonsense, because I'll tell you what, this guy doesn't even realize it, but some of the stuff he writes in here is like, a renter's really the problem you're complaining about here, my friend. I don't think so. I really don't think so. But before we do get into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there is the Pony Club down below as well. So thank you very much to everyone who does help with that. Also, remember to click the like, the share, smash the like button as well, ring the bell, and of course, as always, thank you everyone who does and helps with this. And if you should, well, want to comment down below, crack on. I guess. Oh boy. Yeah, this is interesting. This is interesting on a lot of levels. So this comes from the Telegraph. I know, shock horror. The Telegraph doing something like this. Let's see what it says. So, I have now been without a home for 2 weeks. My nights are now divided between various friends' sofas and spare rooms, and my stuff is now scattered between postcodes. In all the chaos of moving out of my previous flat, I ran out of time to find somewhere else to live, and it's not for lack of trying. Bear in mind, I think a lot of people out there, a lot of people will have been in that exact same situation. So this scenario he's describing is not unusual. So I've chosen, of course, a bad time to have this problem. I'm 28, and most of my peers have hit that great milestone of playing house with a partner, which, yes, I do resent them for. Living alone is obviously out of the question. I am not made of money, so my only option is to move in with strangers. Why do you think that? Why do you think renting alone is out of the question? That is because of landlords. That is not anyone else's problem. It is landlords who control the rent who do this. We've talked briefly about this before in other videos. In fact, I think we've made another video about this. One of the big things with rents and landlord rents is, let's say landlords were to lower a rent of a building, whether it be a commercial property or whether it be a a home property or something like that. If they did that, then instantly, again, according to the great landlord logic, they then have to lower the entire price of that particular building. This is why there are streets, there are all the UK, everyone could see them, of where you could have all these shops and etc. That is because landlords will not lower the price, because if they did, the price of that property, according to them, has to significantly drop. Instead, rents must go up. And he's about to complain about this as well. And as I've said, the problem with him right now is not renters. He has, according to this, quite a good job. He writes for the Telegraph. I would hope that the Telegraph are paying, this guy a good wage. Considering, again, he apparently, lives in London. You'd think his wage would reflect maybe that. Maybe, again, he should be having a word with his boss, trying to get a raise. But again, part of the problem here is not him. It's not renters. It's landlords here. So let's see what else he continues with. So far, he continues, I've found the process of securing a room has made it even worse. Not by landlords, but by renters themselves. Since August, I have contacted around 70 listings on Square Room, a website that matches displaced renters with tenants. In a frenzy, I spent 28 of them with them yesterday, of which only half were open and just 4 sent a reply. This has been my life for the past 3 months, meaning that I have paid Square Room £75 in subscription fees, which allows you to send inquiries as soon as listings go up. Non-subscribers have to wait a week, so good luck with that. Gee, is that also not technically part of the problem? Because Square Room is heavily, favored towards landlords, not renters, but, maybe there's something there again. I have lost count of the number of flats I have gone to see, many of which practically I begged to move into. The demand for rooms in London is staggering. Spare Room does estimate that at least 6 people go for every room, but I think it is a laughable underestimate. Again, London has a big renting crisis. Most of this, bear in mind, is actually driven by the cost of rent to live in London. And you can see people being shoved around in London depending on the price of rents. As rents go up in one area, everyone moves to another area where rents are lower, and the price of rents then goes up because the landlords, they then have to go around. And this just moves the population around. The problem is with landlords, not with renters. But there you go. Anyway, drunk on the power that they then now wield in times of high demand, some potential housemates have made the process rather like an Alan Sugar style job interview, complete with calendar bookings and performances for viewings. One advert, posted by a couple of lads, demanded a video interview and added that the successful candidate would also need to have, quote, have a thick skin for slight piss taking and at least 100% realize that there may be some S talking. Oh boy. Well, probably doesn't sound like a place you'd want to go to, but there's no law, I think, against that. If they want to say, hey, this is the type of environment you're going to move into, you know, but there you go. Others, perhaps obviously feeling that tenants don't already feel insecure enough in their homes, have now developed the concept of housemate probation. One listed reading: "We are currently looking for someone to stay for at least 3 months to get to know them and to sort of assess their vibe. There's potential to extend the agreement for a long-term housemate." Bear in mind, they probably want to find someone good to live with. If they want to do conduct these types of interviews, then technically, yeah, there's no problem with them doing that. I mean, also, this is probably, something the landlord could also, if he wanted to, probably stop as well. Because if they went to the landlord to say, okay, he's moving in, you haven't got to say, then those potential housemates have no say in it. Now he continues, "Look, I realise that the Telegraph is not the place to complain about the plight of London's renters. Because last time I did, the feedback was pretty polarised. Gee, I wonder why." I wonder why the feedback might be pretty polarised. To put it lightly, and this is where it gets fun, my previous landlord got a bit trigger happy with rent hikes, forcing me to up sticks and move out. And I suggest that maybe landlords as a collective could chill out with this sort of behavior. Gee, how could we potentially stop landlords doing that? Because landlords do not stop doing that. This is what landlords always do with these things. And of course, this is something that the new bill does pretend to, well, it doesn't pretend, but, is at least going to try and tackle. Will it be as effective? Yes, but landlords will still be able to raise their rents. What needs to happen is rent control. That is what needs to happen. We bring in rent control, and this will solve a lot of problems within the rental sector. I can guarantee you that. But here I am, not to have a go at landlords because, quote, they are the backbone of Britain. um, yeah, calling landlords the backbone of Britain, I think, is the most disingenuous statement I can ever potentially think of. They are in no way the backbone of Britain. If anything, they really provide, if you want to look at the statistics, very low substandard services, do not have the best likability or even favorability rating. Gee, I wonder why. But there you go. Anyway, but I also, my last one, failed to note how badly I'd filled in the two massive holes I drilled in my bedroom to a hanging mirror. So I got my full deposit back, and I am therefore currently, quote, team landlord. Gee, you got your deposit back, so now you're suddenly team landlord. Give this guy a cookie, somebody. And then now we go onto the renter bashing full blown when already this guy has identified, like, this section alone, saying, that landlords get a bit trigger happy with rent hikes. Really, that's the focus. That is the big problem. This is why, uh, you know, rent control is a good idea. And guess what? I think it is going to be the next big conversation that ends up happening in the UK. I really, really do. So let's get on to this renter bashing he's about to take in. Uh, so anyway, somewhere along the line, renters have forgotten that we are all losers here, that we are doomed to repeat and spend our money furnishing and improvements, decorating properties that aren't ours. A microwave here, a bed frame there, all inevitably now left to future tenants for free. Having given up on asking landlords to replace their stained, caved in sofas, we have now taken to doing it ourselves while gouging each other out of as much cash as we can. What? What? So I I don't know. Maybe this guy had to leave a microframe and a bed frame that he feels bad that he had to leave for like future tenants, and and somehow, you know, oh, I, I just don't even know how to respond to that. That is like the worst. That is easily the worst anti-renter argument I could possibly ever think of. Anyway, uh, the expectations set out by tenants are unhinged at worst and exceedingly lame at best. Oh yeah, so tenants having an expectations that they've got a decent house to live in, that there's no mold, that there aren't any problems within the house, that if there are problems, then the landlord has to fix it, because he's obligated to. He is the landlord. There are countless stories out there of landlords who have not fixed these things, and they have gone on to cause huge other big problems, which then the landlord blames either A on the tenant or just gives them the boot to get someone else in who then won't complain as much. Hence why, again, ending Section 21 notices, very good idea for Labour to be bringing in as well. Anyway, so he quotes someone here saying, "We don't want party people, as this is a sober, health and fitness oriented house." Read one listing. Well, yeah, maybe in the hope that they get good flatmates. This, I think, has been going on for decades. I think there'll be people here who are a lot older than me will be able to say this as well, that they have seen similar listings like this. This isn't new. This goes back decades. And people wanting to make sure that there is at least someone they can, live with potentially. I don't think is a monumental ask, but this guy seems to think it is. Another sought a quote kind and caring person to join an elderly family member who'd been left in the flat alone. We believe the right person would benefit immensely from bringing joy to each other's lives, it gushed, with the implication that the tenant would be some kind of unofficial carer. It was at £1,200 a month, some bills included. Yeah, some bills included. Um, who was charging that amount of money? Oh, that's the landlord. Now, that also really fills into the social care crisis as well, currently going on as well. But again, that's something else. We're talking about how landlords are apparently the good guys in this situation. Anyway, there are, of course, other more sneaky practices going on. Tenants charging more for a room than they should. Gee, I wonder why. I wonder why tenants will be trying to do that and obviously pocketing the extra subsidy for their own rent, while others are asking for £100 in paperwork fees despite the landlords not being able to charge more than £50 and so on. Well, bring that up with them. But I don't think that's as widespread as he would claim. Uh, Again, why are they quote subsidizing? Charging more than they say so they can subsidize their own rents. Geez, it's almost like landlords charging too much for properties is a problem. Oh. Anyway, I got into an argument with one particularly egregious chancer who, having bailed on his tenancy 2 months in, wanted a £350 furniture payment to recoup the money he'd spent on stuff that included an oven dish, a spice rack, a colander, dry brush, and a cutlery organizer. I also brought the toilet brush, but you can have that one for free, he added. Um, well, you said he's a chancer, so if you paid him that 350 quid, well, that's on you. Um, the payment also included a third in a share of now a communal furniture, which he suggested I could pass on to my successor in 10 months. This was because my new housemates had lined up someone to take over the room after a year, and a revelation that they had saved until after they'd offered me the room. Think of the payment like another deposit, the tenant said over text. And I wonder why they're having to do this. And it's not because of their behavior. It's probably because of the landlord's behavior, probably because of how much that actually costs. Anyway, exhausted, I then passed it to my phone to a friend who responded, "You can stick your flat in your flat, you freak." He wrote to write. Sadly, this means that some other poor sod has now dropped hundreds of pounds he'll probably never get back, only to run now the same comma in less than a year when he'll have to now re-download Spare Room like Hinge after a breakup. The rental crisis has cooked our brains. Except, again, the rental crisis and quote cooking brains. Yeah, the bad guy in all this is not tenants; it is landlords. They are the ones who are doing this. Brutalized by spiraling rents and apathetic letting agents, renters are now tearing chunks out of each other. Gee, encouraged by who, I wonder? Why are renters doing this? Well, you've just said brutalized by spiraling rents and apathetic letting agents. It's almost like this area needs more regulation. Anyway, as it's tough, we've now internalized the worst traits of landlords and are now playing dress up as them. Anyway, I'm I'm just eager to see what comments are in here. Let's see how they are. Um, Someone else here. If you're able to work from home some days and commute to London others, why not widen your search to Suffolk, Essex, even Norfolk? I'm sure you'll find a welcome up here in East Anglia. um, duh, 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 duh. Here it is. Sounds as though there needs to be more bit of regulation applied to Spare Room, just as local authorities realized that there was a need to do something about Airbnb. As somebody commented, houses of multiple occupation need registration. Serious landlords have lots of regulations. Spareroom.com seems to be the cowboy that has completely escaped. Um, Someone else said, I've used Spare Room for over 12 years, never had a problem. Someone else, supply and demand. Um, yeah, no, I'm sorry, Tom. I sympathize with your plight, but yeah, I'm sorry. The bad guy in this situation is not renters. Like the bad guy in this situation, I am sorry, 100% is not renters. You've identified who is the real problem several times in your article. It's the fact that you've identified trigger happy landlords raising the rent, which you've identified. You even said, "Oh, well, tenants are taking on the worst aspects of who landlords." Why are all these things happening in and around this? It's probably because these renters are being forced to do this, forced to subsidize their costs because of, these rent-seeking behavior by the landlords. So, yeah, I'm sorry, but this is just ridiculous. That article was just completely 100% ridiculous. I'm sorry, but landlords are not the the victims in all this. They are the instigators. They are the controllers. They are the ones who determine how much rent they pay. And yet there are companies out there who will say, "Oh, don't worry, becoming a landlord is like this lifestyle choice, and it's the road to independent financial freedom." I'm not kidding that I've yeah, like I say, I've heard some ridiculous nonsense working at that job years ago, but oh boy, yeah. Anyway, yeah, let me know what you think down below, and of course, as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.